working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.
Good afternoon and welcome to another Working for You program. I am Lesroy Williams. We thank you very much for tuning in to today's program. Wherever you are in the world, your company every week is very much appreciated. Today we are going to be having a discussion on our prison or correctional facility, as it is sometimes called, because it's really about, how we get people to correct their behavior and their attitudes and so on. And I have with me two persons who, one is the Commissioner of Prisons and Corrections, Mr. Terence James. Mr. James, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Leslie.
And then I have with me the Director of Gender Affairs, Mrs. Celia Christopher. She is no stranger here. She has been here many times. Welcome, Mrs. Christopher. Right. Of course, we know that Her Majesty's Prison, as we refer to it, HMP 1840, is an important part of our society. Prison is not just about punishment, but prison is about reform, rehabilitation, and we'll be hearing a lot of that today. Mr. James, you are the first to be appointed with the title Commissioner of Prisons and Corrections. In fact, there had to be an amendment which was made to the Prison Act. Before that, we heard Superintendent of Prisons, but you're the Commissioner of Prisons and Corrections. Before that, of course, you were a member of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force High Command, in fact, as Assistant Commissioner of Police with responsibility for the Operations Directorate. How has been your transition to the prison? How do you feel in your new position? And what experiences and training equip you for this position?
Good afternoon to everyone out there in TV land, radio land, via the internet, and wherever means you are hearing us from here at the studio of ZIZ. It's been a pleasure to be here, Mr. Williams. We have a long working relationship in going back to our school days. We were schoolmates back in school. And so here we are, here in the ZIZ studio, presenting this program to our population and in the wider world. Yes, I was the first person given the title of Commissioner of Corrections. As you mentioned earlier, I was a member of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force for the last 32 years. And so I have now been transferred from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force to Her Majesty's Prison. It is still given the name Her Majesty's Prison. That has not been changed. I was Assistant Commissioner of Police, and so the government has amended the Prison Act, Chapter 19.08, and in that amendment, where you see the name Superintendent of Prison, it is now replaced by Commissioner of Corrections. So we now have the Commissioner of Corrections, which I am the Commissioner of Corrections, and also a Deputy Commissioner of Corrections. So those amendments were made to accommodate me transitioning from the police force over into Her Majesty's Prison. It has been a somewhat smooth transition for me, coming from a security background, being a police officer for 32 years, and I was responsible for operations. Any major mass code event in the country, I was responsible for making sure that the security is in place. And so going over into the prison and now being in charge of the prison to ensure that the prison is a secure place, the transition has been somewhat smooth for me. I must put on record that I've been getting the full support from the members, the staff at Her Majesty's Prison. I want to put that on record, that the staff has been well accommodating, and they have been showing me the way. The prison have a unique ways of operating, and so I've been learning that quite quickly by the assistance of the staff. So the transition has been very smooth for me.
Okay. Good. Now, Her Majesty's Prison was constructed in 1840. We hear that, HMP 1840.
Yes.
If people don't know anything else, they know that.
Yes.
And it was constructed to accommodate 60 inmates.
Yes.
That was the capacity. Over time, the population of the prison has grown sometimes to 6 times more than what it was built to accommodate. What is the prison population now? And how will or have the spatial dimensions of the prison been dealt with?
All right. As of 6 o'clock this morning, the prison population is 197 inmates. We have 174 being stationed at Her Majesty's Prison at the headquarters in Bastia, and we have 22 over and Nevis. So that's 196. But we have one who is there for court order, meaning they're being kept there for court order. Out of that, at present, we have 8 females. We have a very small number in females, and so it's a more male-dominated population in the prison. As you mentioned, it was constructed to house just 60 inmates, but having 197 today, we have done some additional construction of some additional cells to accommodate that. The prison farm in Nevis was built, and so after the main prison, so we are able to house presently at least 50 inmates at the Nevis prison farm. At present we have 22 over there, so we still have some space available on the prison farm. So we are just maybe slightly overpopulated at this time with the numbers that we have today, that we are working with today.
Okay, right. Now, of course, people go into prison. Any one of us can go to prison. Any one of us can go to prison.
That is true.
And the whole objective, after you have been charged and convicted and you go to prison, you want to become a better person. Or prison should help you to become a better person, to really reflect on what you would have done and to try to bring about some sort of a change. Now, to decrease recidivism, or what we call repeat offenders, what programs of rehabilitation are undertaken at the prison?
Well, the prison have several rehabilitation programs. Let me go back to, you mentioned the word recidivism. This is where inmates reoffend the law, and again when they have been discharged and they return to prison. Some of the time is because when they've been discharged back into society, they go back to the same old bad habits and reoffend the law and return to prison. So that's what the word recidivism means, offending the law and returning to prison. But we have had academic programs and rehabilitative programs inside the prison. I got there and I met a very good academic program. We have heard of some inmates having like 15 and 16 subjects from CXC and CAPE. I can definitely mention one inmate, Mr. Vincent Foy. He's a model inmate inside the prison. He's serving a life sentence, But we have seen that he have turned around his life completely. He have shown remorse to the offense that he has committed, and he's considered like the head teacher inside the prison. He teaches other inmates academic subjects, biology, economics, maths, English, accounts, chemistry. These are some of the subjects that this individual teach. The next individual, Antoine Thompson, he teaches Spanish inside the prison. At present, we also have two of these inmates teaches civilians at the Maurice Hillier School. We have approached the head teacher at the Maurice Hillier School, and we are able to use the school at afternoons every Monday, Tuesday and Wednesdays, and we teach civilians, the inmates, this is their way of giving back to society. And so they teaches these classes at the Maurice Hillier School. We also have skills program. We just started a mechanic course at the AVEC. I had, since taking up my post, I approached Mr. Christopher, the director of the AVEC, Advanced Vocational and Educational Center, and he was able to give us a discipline in mechanical, general mechanic. Mr. Andy Atto, he's one of the facilitators at the AVEC, and he teaches every Monday and Wednesday afternoon general mechanic. At present, there are 5 inmates who started this program since October. It should be running over a 2-year period because we are looking at inmates who would be there for an extended period of time. We don't want to have inmates who will be leaving in short order and they run amok of the program. So we instituted persons who have some years on their sentence. So we have that program going presently at the AVEC. There are inmates who does the baking inside the prison. The prison is self-sufficient in providing its own bread. We know everybody in St. Kitts eat bread.
A staple food.
Staple food in our federation. And so we are self-sufficient in baking our own bread in Her Majesty's prison because they are inmates with that skill and members of staff. Our band, we have a band in the prison, the RGI band. Everyone is aware that they would have played for In the Heart of Christmas, in the Spirit of Christmas in the circus just during our carnival, our last carnival season. And so music is a form of rehabilitation in the prison. That's been going on for some time now, and so we are continuing with that. I must put on record while I'm here and thank Mr. Warner of Warner's One Stop. He has been partnering with us, and he has provided over $13,000 worth of equipment to the band. He provided cordless mics, record the music, the drum set for the band. He has provided that. So I want to thank Mr. Warner for coming on board and partnering with Her Majesty's Prison in supplying these equipment for the band. Agriculture, you know, has always been there in the prison. We have the inmates. We have a farm at Needmouth, and we also have a farm over at the Nevis prison farm. We do the animal husbandry. It's being done on the prison farm in Nevis. We have over 20 heads of cattle, over 100 sheep on the prison farm. We have pigs, we have goats, we have rabbits. We are able to provide our own meat kind for the prison, so we are self-sufficient in providing our meat kind. We also have layer birds, and we provide our own eggs for Her Majesty's Prison. Sometimes we assist the Defence Force with eggs for the kitchen at the Defence Force. When we do have excess vegetables, we also supply the children home with vegetables that produce on the farm. So our agriculture program also is heading in the right direction in us being self-sufficient in providing food for the prison, and thus will cut down the food bill for Her Majesty's Prison. So these are some of the programs that we have going on in Her Majesty's Prison.
Right. So you know, these programs, Commissioner, are designed as part of the self-sufficiency, of course, you mentioned, of the prison.
Yes.
But also designed to bring about the self-esteem
Yes.
of the inmates and also to help them in their whole rehabilitation process.
Yes.
In the rehabilitation process.
Yes.
Which is important. I know Mrs. Christopher, that the Department of Gender Affairs plays a role in terms of going into the prison and assisting as well with that rehabilitation process. Could you outline, what the Department of Gender Affairs does?
Thank you, Mr.
In terms of
Williams.
the prison?
It's always good to come and share with the country what we are doing in the Department of Gender Affairs. And although we are a small department, we have a very large mandate. It's not only domestic violence. There's so many other things, regional and international and so on. But our presence in the prison is linked to the convention and the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. So that is why we're in there. And again, people are central to the development of any country. And gender is cross-cutting. So you're going to find us cutting across a lot of different ministries where certain issues are raised. In that regard, we are in there because we have a female population. And as you have alluded to before, we do not expect people to go into an institution and come out the same way. So we have to introduce some rehabilitative program. And in that regard, we are undertaking a program of personal and career development using soft skills so that when they are released back into society, because of the stigma that follows the imprisonment of people, they are able to generate employment for themselves. Now, we used to be in the prison on an ad hoc basis, but there's a need for a structured program.
Yes.
You have too many people going in doing little pieces of this and little pieces of that and so on. So we have developed an annual program. Every year we're in there, we do it on a quarterly basis. We set up our work plan where we have both personal and, as I say, career development. We have taught them quite a lot over the last 2 years that we have been in prison, to the extent where we have one of them that I refer to as a great success, because she has been able to establish a daycare center for children, and she has 12 children, and she's doing very well. That daycare center has been accredited by the Early Childhood and the Child Development Board, and so we are looking to work with them so that when they leave the place, we don't have that type of recidivism among women.
Yes.
Right. That word keeps coming up, recidivism,
Yeah.
and which is repeat offenders, offending. And something that also came up is about the discrimination and stigma. And they're tied, because sometimes when inmates are released back into the society, there is not that support system. The support system is not there that helps them to reintegrate into the society. And so what happens is that you mentioned that they go back to their old lifestyles,
Yeah.
and so on, at least what seemed to have worked for them in some sort of a way. And then they end up back in the same pot, and then they end up back in Her Majesty's prison. So what is really being done to decrease recidivism? And how can we address, we spoke about the recidivism before,
Yeah.
some of what is being done, but how can we address the discrimination and the stigma that prevent ex-convicts, inmates, from being reintegrated into the society? Because there has to be a whole sort of a shift in terms of mindset of people.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that you ask, do you have a criminal record? And once an employer hears that perhaps you have already been to prison and so on, it's almost like, it's a no-no for them.
Yes.
How can we deal with that?
Well, this is one other way which I intend to deal with it. I hope to deal with it is to come into the media and sensitizing the public, because if the public is not aware, have knowledge of how this prison system works, this stigma will continue. Because we know in St. Kitts, once somebody goes to prison, it's like they have been written off. But we have the saying, once a man would have paid his debt to society, he should be given a second chance. I know the government would have passed a piece of legislation that some people might have a minor offense on their record for years, and that would have hampered them from getting a job, even getting to travel. And so after a certain period of time, you can write to the Attorney General seeking permission for that to be expunged from your record so that you can have a clean record. So if this is being done for someone who is outside of prison, we are now asking people to give an inmate a second chance because they would have paid their debt to society. When one is sentenced by the court and they go to the prison, that is their punishment for the crime which they have been committed. So you should not punish them further when they would have already paid their debt to society. So this is what have to be known to the public, and for us to help to remove that stigma. I had conversation with the Rotary Club, and one of the things that they want to do is to come and speak with inmates who would have maybe about 3 more months, 2 more months on their sentence, who will be discharged from the prison in short time, so that we can prepare them how to prepare themselves when they have been discharged back into society. Because we have to understand that one of these days, these inmates would be discharged back into society. One of these days. Even now, persons who are serving life sentences, in that the OECS Court of Appeal just recently sent out to all the territories a sentencing guideline. And life imprisonment now means that you must do a mandatory 30 years. So even if a man is sentenced to life in prison and he do a 30 years, he will be eligible for parole. Well, to be discharged. Mm-hmm. We do not have the parole system in place in the Federation as yet. But I think the law was passed that we can have a parole, but there's some things that have to be implemented first before the parole system could take effect. But it's on our books in the laws of the Federation. But public awareness is one of the key things in making the public aware and have some understanding of the prison system work, and I think this can alleviate some of the stigma that the years gone by that people have towards inmates, especially because females do have real challenge to get employment or to seek employment when they would have left the institution, because as long as the employer asks the question, have you ever been to prison? That might be on the form, and you said yes. The next thing is I'll put you on file.
Right. When I haven't heard the word in a long time, but people used to say, "What's the jail bud?" No,
yes.
They don't even say jailbird, jail bud.
Yes, a real derogative.
A very derogative term, and so on. And then you mentioned, because people go to jail, and sometimes they were the breadwinners in the family.
Correct.
They have children.
Correct.
Mothers and fathers that they have children. And if they go to jail, it means that the income and so on for the whole family and so on is affected. The children are affected because they're growing up without having the presence of
the breadwinner.
The breadwinner and their parents there. But so there has to be some sort of a support mechanism that is in place for children, young children who are not 18 years yet, when their mothers and their fathers are incarcerated, and they too sometimes have to deal with the stigma.
Yes.
Being heard that their parents are in prison.
Yes.
I want to really thank those members of the corporate society who are very considerate and has been working with the Department of Gender Affairs. You cannot expect to have a peaceful society if you do not want to be a part of the reform of the very people who affect the society. And so when females are getting ready to be released, we'll work with them, and we have been very successful in finding them jobs, because if they go out and they're not working, they're going to tend to revert to what they were doing because they have to survive. So we get work for them. We go out and we speak to them and we get work for them and so on. So the program so far in India has been very successful. It's not a large group of women. As the
Yes.
commissioner said, there's only 8 in there, but even with 8, even it's one too many. Because as you have said, when a woman is taken out of the family, especially we
Yeah.
have 61% single-headed household headed by women. When you remove that person, the whole family unit breaks down. So we have to try and keep them together. And we also work on their self-esteem because, as you say, we have a very unforgiving society. And people go out there, even though you have paid your debts to society, they don't allow you to forget. So we make sure we strengthen them with the personal development, self-esteem and all of that and so on. Get a job, look after yourself and so on, and we work with them. And sometimes some of them come back and say they are doing well, others sometimes, not all of them going to come back. We are even trying to, upon release, to continue some of the program on the outside. But that again may be a little challenging because of the fact that they have to work, and in the afternoon, by the time they finish working, they have to look after a family. So we are looking at ways and means how we can reach them when they're on the outside, because it doesn't matter what you teach on the inside, they tend to forget. So yes, I really want to thank the members of the corporate society for working with us. In terms of the children of those parents, they become, once we find those children, they become part of the social assistance program. So they can go there, they can get their school uniforms, they get their vouchers and so on. Whatever is due to them, they get sick, they become part of the system because they're coming from a vulnerable group which falls under our responsibility.
Right. Now, I have heard of criminal networks in prisons.
Yes.
People go into prison and somehow they start to learn all kinds of things. Instead of rehabilitation, they're learning, how further to commit crime, and they form their own groups and influences, bad influences, one prisoner, or let me say inmate, I don't like, influencing
Inmate, yes.
another inmate, and so on. We've had cases of that where people, even in prison, I remember when I worked as a reporter for a journalist for the St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper, there was a case that I was following in the court where one inmate was ordering people on the outside to commit crime.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call any name and
No.
so on.
No.
And, we hear sometimes about, things getting into the prison, whether it be drugs, lighters and all kinds of things. We've also heard of prisoners escaping from the prison.
Yeah.
So what is really being done to beef up security at the prison and to eradicate those sort of criminal elements in the prison? Mind you, rehabilitation helps, but we have to be aware that sometimes we are dealing with some criminal minds.
Yes. All right. We have in the prison. One comes in the prison. Anytime you come into the prison, you have to come into the prison and what we call a document, meaning that you're either a convict or you're remanded. If you're a convict, it means that you are committed by the court to serve a sentence. If you are remanded, it means that you will be remanded in the prison. In our system, you can only be remanded for 7 days, a maximum. So you're remanded for 7 days, and then the 7 days comes and you did not get bail, we'll remand you for another 7 days. By our constitution, every man have a right to bail, unless you committed murder or treason, those heinous crimes. So you're entitled to bail. So if you do not get bail, then you'll be remanded for 7 days. What we try to do is to separate the remand from the convicts, because you don't want a man to be there, he's remanded and mixing between hard criminals, which are convicts. So we try to keep them separated at all times until the remands have been dealt with by the court. We have, as you mentioned about networking, inmates will always network because they're there in the cell, they are thinking of ways to beat the guard. the staff. The staff have a responsibility to prevent contrabands from entering the prison. In recent times, we have installed a scanning machine at the gate. So everyone entering the prison gate, they're being scanned, their entire body scanned, any bags or anything is being scanned. Since we have installed that, we have seen a drastic reduction in contraband or prohibited items entering the prison. Certain things are restricted. We have seen persons bring juice, frozen juice, and inside the juice a cell phone. You think that is just a frozen juice. When you open it, a cell phone is inside there. So inmates have created ways to try and beat the staff, even members of the public. And I must stress this and let the public know. We have a sign on the gate that persons found trying to convey any contraband into the prison, they will be dealt with by the law. That goes without saying. Okay? And so we are asking members of the public to refrain from attempting to bring contraband into the prison. But since we have installed this scanning machine, we have seen a drastic reduction. Inmates will always try to beat you. They will beat you sometime. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. You can't stop everything from entering the prison. But somehow, some means, things get into the prison. If they're on the inside, we do searches thoroughly every so often, and so we eventually will find them on the side of the prison, because they will beat you. You did mention about escaping. Yes, we have had an escape in recent time. I spoke about that already. Since that, we have bridged that gap. We have hardened that area where the inmates would have escaped, and we saw how he would have planned his escape, and we have since then hardened that area. We have presently installed CCTV cover the complete surroundings of the prison and inside of the prison. So anywhere you move inside the prison, it's covered by CCTV, and we have 24 hours manning of the cameras. So we have stepped up the security of the prison, and so we're hoping that we don't have any further escaping.
Right.
Well, we do take people in as part of our programs to facilitate topics there, but they have to go through all of the processes that are in the prison. Even ourselves, everybody have to go to the process.
Right. But Commissioner, are you privy to the social and psychological reports of convicts? So basically, because somebody coming into the prison,
Yes.
you would have to have some sort of a background in terms of who this convict is.
Yeah.
Which would help you, of course, with the whole understanding of how to relate to such a person.
Yes.
And the whole rehabilitation process.
If a psychiatric evaluation is being recommended by the court,
Yes.
and an inmate before they are officially sentenced, the commissioner, I usually get a copy of that. Mm-hmm. I usually get a copy of that so that, as you said, I can have some knowledge of the character of the individual. So I will get a copy of that. If that is not done, generally we would not usually do an evaluation, a psychiatric evaluation on an inmate. Because if they would have gone to trial, you cannot try somebody in the court unless the court think that they are competent to stand the trial.
Yes.
Because if the court feel that the person is probably insane, they will stop the trial of the case and have what you call a voir dire, a trial within a trial, to establish if the person understand wrong from right when they was committing the offense or during the trial. Because you can't try, if somebody don't know wrong from right, they cannot be criminally held.
That's fine. The person might not be insane, but the person might be violent.
Yeah, right. They might be violent, and so we should have some kind of knowledge that this is a violent person.
Because you have acts of violence,
Yes,
that might break out in prison.
In prison, that is true. Because actually we have an inmate that maybe fit into this category. So we usually have him separated from the general population. He is there from order from the court. As I said, anyone in the prison, we have to have a document to keep you there. We do not keep an individual in the prison by word of mouth. We will be breaching people's constitutional right. It must be a document from the court. The court gives that authority for someone to be held inside Her Majesty's prison.
You know,
And in terms of females, Mrs. Christopher, you have to have somebody who is in charge of the females, because you really can't have a male
Right.
being in charge of the females, and you cannot really have. That's why you have a separation. You can't have males entering into
The female section.
the female
that's
section.
correct. We have a
You're
matron.
going to have trouble.
Yes, by law, in the Prison Act, you have a matron. This is a senior female officer who is responsible for the female section, and they have other female officers who works there. And it is completely separated from the male section of the prison. Even the law say that if I'm the commissioner and I want to go to the female section, I must get permission
From the matron.
matron to go around to that area. Right? We don't want any allegation to be made that the male went down to
Sure.
the female area. So that is kept.
You know, I
Right.
have been asked the question many times on the street, why are you all doing all these things for these people? They have broken the law and they're going
Yeah.
to prison. But people must understand that you people have their civil, even though you lose your civil rights, you do not lose your human rights.
Right, human
And
dignity.
because of that, they still have to treat them like human beings. So on Mother's Day and special days and so on, we get with some of our good friends, friends that support gender, to take in little care packages and so on and so forth. And sometimes we have a little get together for them. Mr. Commissioner here allow us to come in and, you know, have a little fun day for
Yeah.
them inside the
You know,
prison.
some people have
That
problems.
has helped a lot. And apart from that too, this thing about just sitting there because they say the devil find things for idle hands to do and for idle hands to do and so on. So I have been speaking with Mr. Commissioner here to try and establish some sort of a library. That has been something from way back we've been trying to do. But we are working together and we'll make sure, but we're not going to carry literature in there that they're not supposed to have because they have to be vetted by the prison, of course.
Yes.
I'm always reminded of the story, the biblical story, in which the scribes, and you know who they were, and the Pharisees brought this lady to Jesus because she was caught in the act
Adultery.
of committing adultery. And of course, in those days, the penalty for committing adultery was that you were stoned to death. It is a very serious sin.
Yes.
And they brought her to Jesus to test him, of course. But they brought her thinking that, look, we caught her. But yet, she could never have been caught in the act of adultery by herself. That is the first thing. Some male must have been there, but the male was not brought, which shows you, of course, the injustice already there
discrimination.
and discrimination in that society.
Yeah.
But he said to them,
You without
which
sin.
of you have no sin of your own, cast the first stone. And by the time he bent down to write something on the ground, and he came back up, they were all gone. And so sometimes we have to apply that to ourselves too. That we have faults
Sure.
and we do wrong things. Sometimes we are not caught. But think of the person in the prison. They have rights,
Yes.
as
Yes,
Mrs.
yes.
And their human dignity. Some people say, "Oh, but why should my taxpayers' money go into feeding them?" And all of that sort of a thing. But it's a human right to be fed
Yes.
and shelter and to be clothed.
Like
Those are basic human rights that everyone has.
You violated your civil rights, you lose your freedom and all of that. And that is not something to be taken lightly. Losing your freedom is a serious, serious thing.
But sometimes we only behave that way when it's not our brother or our sister
Right.
or our mother or somebody for us. Then we realize
So serious it is.
it hits home.
Yes. When one comes into the prison, as I said, they would have lost their liberty. You can't move how the way you want to move. We are the staff. We tell you when to come to shower. We tell you when
Right,
to
exactly.
eat.
So you lose
We
that
tell you
freedom.
what to do. Because the Prison Act have prison rules that even though they are sentenced to the prison, when persons are incarcerated, they can still violate inside the prison. So there are rules that govern you while you're inside the prison. And so inmates have to understand, yes, your liberty has been curtailed now. And they have to understand that. You're not out in the street anymore where you move when you want, you eat when you want, you shower when you want. We tell you what to do inside the prison. But as Ms. Christopher mentioned, they do not lose their human dignity. And so that's one of the things I am trying to instill in my staff, that these people are human beings still, and they must be treated like human beings. An inmate is not feeling well, you need to go and see the doctor. You need to take him to the doctor. You need to see the dentist, you need to take him to the dentist. Our primary objective as members of staff is the care and custody of the inmates. We have to take care of the inmates while they're in custody. And we have to ensure that nothing happens to an inmate while he's inside there. Otherwise, we can be held responsible too. We might end up over the prison. I don't want that. So I try to instill in my staff that they have to look out and care for the inmate, even though they are incarcerated.
Right. Now, you touched on a number of things, but many people might ask, what is a day in the life of an inmate like?
Inmates are locked down for the night, basically. Every inmate is in the cell. By 6 o'clock in the morning, the staff that is there would, what we call, unlock the cells and let out the force. They usually do a head count. You got to make sure that nobody escape over the night. So the first thing in the morning, everybody rise, you do a head count, then they will have devotion. We know religion is a big thing all over the world, so there might be Rastas, there might be, but generally we know our society is a Christian society, so they will read their Bibles, maybe sing one or two gospel songs, so they'll have devotion. Devotion is completed, then they'll have their shower, then they'll have their meal by 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. After a meal, then they will be deployed for their tasking. Inmates might go out in their gang, different places to work, they have work to do in the yard. Having done, been deployed for their tasking, then we have maybe mid-morning, depending on the time, we'll have what we call rec, the shortening for recreation. An inmate must be brought out of his cell to give recreation so that he can move his limbs and move around. Some will play a little basketball, we have a little basketball rim in the yard, so they will do physical activities to stretch their limbs. Recreation completed, it's just about midday by then, so they'll have lunch midday. Then they return to their, having had lunch, return to their cells. By 4:30, 5 o'clock, they'll have supper. Then we have a head count again. After the head count, by then, those gangs that would have gone out to work should be back by 6 o'clock. At 6 p.m., all inmates should be back to the prison. There are times when one or two might be out still under the supervision of a staff, so they'll come back maybe after 6, but generally they should be back by the prison by 6. Then we'll have, maybe by 8, we'll have a lock-in for the night. All the inmates will return to their cell by then and be locked away for the night until 6 o'clock in the morning again.
And then the whole cycle
begins again.
The cycle continues.
Yes.
Okay. Do they have television?
Yes, they have access, the main cells, they have access to the television, but the channels are being controlled. You don't have everybody watching all the movies and the cable. How much channels? 75 channels for $60? No. We have more educational specific channels, spiritual channels, educational channels.
And sometimes, of course, if you have one TV and you have so many inmates, that can create problems too, because
we try not
that is
to
what
have
is
that.
controlled. That is what is controlled.
But we have several television stations, different places. So some might be watching that one, some may be watching that one, to avoid that confusion.
Right.
And with regards to the women, they have done quite a number of products, but we can't take pictures because that's against the rules. So I'm working with Mr. Commissioner to make sure when they put on their show with what the men have done, to also showcase the work of the ladies as well.
Okay. Now, when the Commissioner mentioned some of the rehabilitation programs, some of them were male specific.
Yes.
Are there female-specific rehabilitation, for example, things that they can do with their hands?
Oh
like
yes, there was
arts.
there is a sewing program in the prison, and it had warmed my heart to see one of the inmates who went to court for trial. She wore the outfit that she made, and they have those sort of soft skills. They are doing floral arrangement. These are little things that they can do when they get out of prison. If they can't find work, they can do these things, you know, and we probably ministries and so on would patronize them and try to help them to make a living. They also, we want to try agriculture, but we want to do it in bags. We want to give them as many skills as possible so that when they are out back into society, if they can't find work quickly, they can do something.
They can help themselves.
Yeah, yes.
As she was mentioning about the female, we have inmates in the prison who are very skilled carpenters and masons. If person would have been drive across the defense force, past the defense force camp, you see this big yellow building up there. That was built by inmates of Her Majesty's prison. We are presently building a barracks inside the prison for the staff. The inmates are who doing that work. So the labor will reduce the labor cost because we will be able to provide the labor from the inmates. The police headquarters at the back facing the Warner Park, that area right up to the top was done by inmates in Her Majesty's prison. So there are inmates in Her Majesty's prison with that kind of skills that can do these jobs.
I know in some countries, these are bigger countries and more developed countries, you have prisoners, inmates who work within the prison and they are remunerated.
Yes. As you mentioned, there are times when the breadwinner would have been incarcerated. So since I've gone there, one of the things that I see that we can assist inmates with is, as I mentioned, they are inmates with skill. And if someone have, a private citizen have a job that they would like done, they usually will contact me, one of the senior staff, and ask how we can give them some assistance. And usually we will do that, and we will not charge the market value of the cost of the job, but at least they can give the inmate something, earn something. And if an inmate make a $200 on one job, another $200 on another job, that's $400 he make there. He can send back something out to his family to help to purchase some school books.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of thing that we are trying to implement inside the prison, because as I say, the breadwinner gone, and you're left now with the child out there, and the mother to fudge for herself, and this could cause the cycle of breeding.
It can.
Yes, so we want to avoid that.
Because even with the care packages, sometimes they get large packages and they want to send some back home for their children or whatever. So
Yes.
the prison accommodate that, and we accommodate that, and the people who give the donations, they agree to send this stuff also.
Right. Now we are going to go to the phone lines. I have a whole list of other questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
But we are going to open the phone lines, and you can call in and ask your question. The overseas number is 1718-577-2916. That's the overseas number. And the local number is 465-2555. We await your calls. Now, Commissioner, there are breaches that would take place in the prison, whether they be on the part of inmates or sometimes even prison officers.
Yes.
Can breach the
Prison
prison rules and so on. How are they dealt with in the prison? And also, what rewards are there for inmates with good conduct? Because you want a system where you encourage good conduct and so on.
As I mentioned, we have the Prison Act and the prison rules that govern the prison. And so if an inmate breach the prison rules, try to convey some sort of contraband, he might have gone out to work and he's coming back and he's trying to smuggle something in the prison and he's being caught, that's conveying a prohibited item, or we call it a contraband, into the prison. So he would have breached the prison rules. And so we will have an hearing. One of my senior officers will adjudicate and hear the evidence, just like if it was a case in the court. They'll hear the facts of the case, and if he's found guilty of trying to convey contraband into the prison, then there will be sanctions. There will be sanctions. Some of the sanctions will be segregation, removed from the general population. He will not be able to get any benefits or privilege, getting a phone call. No phone calls. You will not be able to get any phone calls for the next couple of days.
Let's break you there. We have a caller. Working for you, good afternoon.
Happy New Year to you guys also.
Happy New Year.
It's too late to say that. My question, right? Let's say you have people who are in the society, who would have held, top position, popular persons and stuff, right? And for whatever reason or another, they might have ended up in the prison. That could be a kind of situation there with like people who would have been in the prison before. Would these new inmates be placed with, people who were prisoners who were there, people who were there before, or would they be put in a separate area because of their standing in the society? Like a lawyer, doctor, somebody of that sort. Would they be placed in the same area, or do you have separate areas because of their standing in the society? You don't want to say mix them in, and then they be harassed by people who were there before. Do you have something like that in the prison, or everybody just go in the same area? Thank you.
Generally, when a person comes into the prison, if we think that that the person life could be at threat for being in general population, we will try to separate them from the general population. Right? So that's one of the things that we would have done. But generally, once the person comes into the prison, we have different cell blocks and cell areas, so we can keep them separated as much as possible. We will not let them have work with the general population.
Okay, so you working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Leslie and company.
Good afternoon,
Good
sir.
afternoon.
Yeah, okay. My question to the commissioner there for the prison.
Yes.
Now, I agree that we are a human being and we all do make mistakes sometimes. And that is taken into great consideration. But when me gonna pre-plan what I'm going to do by Saturday, for instance, I can take up somebody, kidnap somebody from all the way down in Bastion, carry them 9 miles. What happened to my brain when I'm driving going to the destination, go kill that person? I would like to know what is in the prison to deter people like me who are going to commit that kind of crime, to deter others from thinking that way. Because we know people been kidnapping people and killing them over the years and all kind of thing. But then yet still you find in these times some of them people who commit them kind of vicious crime, they ain't thinking about that because they see no penalty, no penalization for them for committing that kind of crime. So what is the deterrent in there to deter people from committing that? I'll listen up here for the rest.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Working for you, Mr. William.
Yes.
Yes. I listen to your talk show and so something hit me because the scripture. Now, we have a tendency, if you do prostituting, is it worse in the world to me? She should kill her, he should kill, you understand?
Yeah.
Be killed. But then, these people here, that Jesus caught me with the woman, want to kill the woman. Well, she been caught in the very act. That's what the scripture says, you understand?
Yes.
And they want to kill her. But then, even today, we have a passage, it's the worst. It's worse than if you chop off a man's hand or foot. We have it to be, but it's not so. All sin is sin. S-I-N, sin. Yes, so they want to kill the lady, the woman. And Jesus said, which one of you, whomever was here, that's why I feel happy about that. He represents. Which one of you is without sin? Put out the first stone. Nobody could have done nothing more than maybe they just go away. You see, so people must understand is whatever you do in the way or other thing, you thief, you lie, you false news, isn't that Mr. Williams, isn't that sin? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, whatever you do, lie, thief, prostitute, all is sin. And bear false witness against your neighbor. Oh, no, you don't have to kill a person for it to be sin. It's sin. Sin is sin. Thank you much.
Thank you. Good.
Alright, the caller spoke about how can you prevent someone from thinking about killing. What in our prison we have a counselor who is stationed at the prison. So she have regular sessions with inmates and here and try to see how you can change their mind from thinking these devious thinking thoughts. But if I'm thinking along the line that the caller is thinking, capital punishment, it is still on our books, but we haven't executed anybody. I think the last time would have been in 2007, 2008, 98. But some time has elapsed since we have really carried out the capital punishment, and I don't think any of the islands in the region have done that in recent times. All right, and so some people say hanging don't stop crime.
It's not a deterrent.
It's not a deterrent to crime. So that's for another debate.
Yeah.
That's for another debate. Our job in the prison, me and my staff, is to keep the inmates safe and care for the inmates until they are ready to be discharged. And that's our primary job, to keep the inmates safe and care for them until they are ready to be discharged. That's our primary job.
Right.
I am not sure how the process works in terms of admittance, but what I would really like to see, that there is some mental assessment is being done when they're entering to see exactly what you're dealing with.
Well, that's why
That's
I
what
said,
I alluded to earlier.
but that's why I said once, for example, when somebody is being convicted for murder, a psychiatric evaluation must be done.
Yes.
Must be done before the sentence is really handed down.
But I think it should be not just for murder, because if you have other prisoners there who are potential murderers, you probably would
Yes,
pick
yes.
up.
Well, generally, once you're convicted
Yeah.
in the High Court,
Yeah, you get the mental
and
assessment,
a psychiatric evaluation is done before the sentence is handed down.
Mrs. Christopher, how do you determine a potential murderer? Are you a potential murderer?
I don't know. Or maybe
Are you a potential
I don't
murderer?
know. Maybe some tests might point to something that give rise to concern, but I don't know.
Well, some people just say that you can see the signs was coming.
The signs.
The signs.
Yeah, I hear people say that.
That's the most people can say. The sign, because persons can flip. People use the term.
People can flip.
People use the term that persons can flip. Sometimes you see a person, they're just looking cool and calm, and then they just react to something violent. So
And on the other hand, you hear people say, "Oh, he had a mean streak a long time ago, so they
Yeah.
should know that."
right,
Yeah.
which is
Sometimes it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
so easy to determine.
No.
that.
to detect.
Yeah. Now you were speaking earlier, Commissioner, about the prison breaches and so on, and how they are dealt with, and the
Yes.
rewards for
Yes.
inmates. I don't think you finished that
Right.
point.
We have what is called in the prison act remission. Remission is by law the time that is deducted immediately upon entering the prison. This is time that is deducted from your sentence from the court. So if you were sentenced for 3 years, for 3 years in Her Majesty's prison, you will only serve 2, because automatically 1/3 would be deducted, and that is what is called the remission. If you commit breaches while you're inside the prison, the commissioner have the authority to take back something out of that remission. So if you violate the rules in the prison, the law makes provision to take back something out of that 1 year that was deducted. So that can happen in the first instance. But Inmates in the prison who would have turned their life around would have shown remorse to the offence, and you're seeing that they're becoming a model, what we call a model inmate.
Yes, yes.
The law makes provision that the superintendent or the commissioner should write to the minister, indicating to him that this inmate have taken part in the rehabilitation program. We have seen signs that he have turned his life around. He have shown remorse, because that is a critical thing, that the offender has accepted that he has done something wrong, and he has shown remorse. Because if an inmate have not shown remorse, it means that likely that he can go back and commit that offense again. Okay, so showing some
the
remorse.
Governor General has powers of pardon.
Yes, I'm going to come to that. I was speaking about what the minister, who is the minister responsible for national security, you can write to him and request, ask him to give a further remission to that inmate of 3 months or 6 months, so that the inmate can get a further remission on his time, so he can even probably get a much earlier release from the prison.
Okay.
Yes, you were mentioning
The Governor General.
Right, in the Constitution, I don't remember the section offhand, but the Governor General have the authority to pardon an inmate who would have been sentenced to death. This would have, of course, his case or his lawyer would have probably gone through the appeals system and all those things, so that he might not be executed. Like I said, we have not executed anyone in the Federation for some time, because the Governor General would have pardoned some inmates previously.
Yes.
So those who would have been given a life sentence in the prison.
Okay. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
I have a strange question. Do you have anybody in prison who, I don't have the word to describe it, but don't have anybody to bring anything for them? You know, families would go and carry little things, deodorant and stuff for their people. Do you have anybody in the prison who just not got nobody to bring things to them?
Yes, there are persons in the prison who would not normally get any assistance from anyone from the outside, and so this is where the prison have a responsibility to provide for those people basic necessity, toothpaste, soap, flip-flops for the showers. These are some basic things that the prison would have a responsibility to provide for these individuals. But in the past, even the Christmas gone, there are good partners out there who would have donated to the prison toiletry, roll-on, soaps, and those kind of things. And so we will have some there in stock, so that we can give to these inmates who don't have anybody come in and bring in anything for them inside the prison.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Working for you, good afternoon.
Here is why I'm company. I'm back.
Yes.
A question there to the commissioner of the prison.
Yes.
Now, I would like ask this question. Now, who has the final say or authority if Lesroy want to take me, a prisoner, by his home for Christmas dinner? Can Lesroy, as a big man in a high position in the community, just come and say, well, come to you and say, well, I need a prisoner to take by my home? Who has the final authority, the prison commissioner or the governor? Because the prison is named Her Majesty Prison. So do any minister in the government could come and say, well, they want me? Who has the final say? I listen over here.
I have not had that on my table since I'm the commissioner of the prison. But usually the commissioner of the prison has the final say as to who comes in and who goes out of the prison. And so, as I said, I haven't had that request by any minister for them wanting an inmate to come by their house or anything like that.
My question, if I were to ask it, is does the Prison Act speak to that? For example, I know that, this Prison Act will speak to the legal custody of the prisoner,
Yeah.
and certain things, for example, power of this to discharge prisoners temporarily on
Yes.
account of ill health,
Ill health, right.
or removal of the prisoner for judicial and other purposes and so on.
Yes.
What would fall under those other purposes? Because it seems to me that what he's asking is that, can you just take up a prisoner and take them out so they're going for Christmas lunch by
No.
their family?
No, because we have to remember that once a person has been sentenced to prison, is sentenced to prison under the care and custody of the commissioner of the prison. So the commissioner have responsibility. So it's not that a minister gonna just come willy-nilly and say, I want an inmate to go to have lunch or dinner or whatever the case may be. We have had persons who want to bring things into the prison specifically for prisoners. Christmas gone, just recently gone. We give that benefit to the inmates who have their family. I think was 5 family members were able to come visit the inmates and bring a Christmas lunch, and we specify what they can bring for the Christmas so that we can have that connection still with the family. This is a critical thing.
So some years ago, a former Minister of National Security took up a number of prisoners and took them over to the Marriott for a conference. Or and some people in the society had problems with that. Now, you would have had prisoners of, I don't like to use that word, inmates, of course, who would come out for various purposes, like, as you mentioned, that Christmas concert down in
the band. We have a band and people request.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I already have a request for the band to go over to Nevis to play. I'm just waiting on the final letter from the institution for the band. So we allow the band to go and play, and we provide security for the band to go over there and play. It's the same thing. We had security. The band is playing in the circus in the heart, the spirit of Christmas, and they were playing there.
Right.
Going forward in a positive direction, though, if I think that the purpose what the prisoner will be going for is a positive thing. Suppose we want some inmates to come up here to speak about in the studio of ZIZ. This would be a positive thing as to turning their life around and speaking about their experiences and those kind of things. So it's not written in stone.
So we still have to think of the human dignity of the inmate. Working for you, good afternoon. Hello?
Good afternoon to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Commissioner James, I realize that you have ducked the statement that Mr. Williams have made to you about the former National Security Minister. Let's say, was he guilty of doing that? Okay, I want to move on from that. Is there anyone, since you've been Commissioner of Her Majesty Prison, is there any inmates that you have wrote? Is there any letters that you have wrote to the minister or to the governor to pardon anyone as yet? Have you wrote any letters as yet?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your questions.
All right. According to Rule 40 of the Prison Act, it says that if a person is serving a life sentence and he would have served 10 or 15 years of the life sentence, and we believe that he would have attained the age of 60. The superintendent, if you hear me saying superintendent, it's because now the new thing is the commissioner of correction. The commissioner have a responsibility to write to the minister responsible for national security and indicating to him the status of this inmate. Since I have taken up the post, yes, I have written to the minister indicating this section of the act, and so it is being dealt with and looked into at this time.
Okay. Now, Commissioner, does your portfolio expand to that of the Horizons Rehabilitation Center?
No.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay. Because we have to think in terms of,
juvenile
justice and reformation as well,
right,
which
correct.
is a part of correction.
Yes. at present, the New Horizon is not a part of Her Majesty's prison. The New Horizon have its own administration and
Comes under the Child Protection
child
Board.
protection board.
Right, and there's a reason for that. You cannot put children with
Right.
with adults.
You don't
in the
want to
same.
put juveniles in the same institutional establishment
An
with
environment.
environment with convicts or remanded prisoners. But I can say though that the government has plans to construct a new facility. We already have the land and close in the Estridge estate area, and so we're just waiting for that to start. But in this new institution, we'll be having a separate female area, a separate juvenile area, and a separate area for the remand inmates and a separate area for the convict inmates. So we'll be having a much larger facility to accommodate that. And it's very much needed because for our rehabilitation programs, you need a mechanic shop, you need a carpentry shop, and we're not able to provide that at the space that we
Right.
presently operate from. So that's something that we'll really be looking forward to.
Now, the Peace Initiative program of the government has yielded a reduction in major crimes, such as homicides, and also social rehabilitation, the same rehabilitation that we are talking about for members of gangs and vulnerable people in our society, at risk
Yes.
young people in our society. What is your view on this? And how does this redound positively in terms of the correctional facility, the prison system?
I must be upfront, Mr. Williams, in that since I've taken up the post there, I've seen a real calm in the prison. Coming from the police side, I know we are all aware of the truth that is happening in the Federation, and we have seen a drastic reduction in the homicides and the shootings. And so I think that is having a positive effect and a rippling effect in I'm seeing the calm inside the prison from the truth, because the police is not charging any individuals, and so the court haven't have any reason to remand any individual. So we are not seeing that fluctuation or that influx of inmates, gang members or anything like that into the prison. So we are seeing a calm inside the prison, and we are thankful for that, and we're hoping that it can remain like that till eternity. I think the Federation of St. Kitts would really appreciate that for it to continue. Whatever people want to say about it has been put on it. I'm the commissioner, and I'm thankful that I'm having that peace in the country, because I'm seeing that peace in my prison also.
Okay. Working for you, good afternoon.
Working for you, Leslie. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jam Down.
And my good friend Terence James.
Good
And tell
afternoon.
Leslie you was a part of the 5-point plan.
Good
Don't
afternoon.
hide nothing. We just, when you gotta move on, you gotta move on, because we know, man like you, do well in the force. You was a part of where we were going through with these lot of grieving parents. You was a part of that, trying to combat that. And you play a very good role. And I seen it in the prison. I hear inmates talk, and it only could get better, Mr. James. And Terence,
Yes.
I want you to put in your diary for me. We're getting some problem in communities where people get nasty in Terence. People just litter in the place. Tutu in town, in Pretoria Square and Independence Square. I mean, Mr. James, I want you to help us with some of your inmates, with Tudor. Tudor do a very good job in Irish Town. With some inmates, I have to send in something for them.
Okay.
You understand? We are to clean up our abandoned place.
Yes.
Down Jewels Avenue. Man, a very, very good job. And it will start to get nasty again. I wanna congratulate Sergeant Tudor.
Yes.
And
Sergeant Rochester.
I know once you be a James, everything gotta go fine. I know that. But I said this to say that I want you to help us out a lot because we got some problem. The social workers them on the road and supervisors they're not working. Then bringing it down in the command, making workers do it. Look, Terrence, me and you can't give this country 40 hours a week and the next set giving it two and a little piece.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
Somebody got to do the fair share. Christmas going to push out the hand for money.
Yes.
This country got find money to pay. And
Right.
how long the road is them, you know?
Okay,
I
jam
just walk
down.
up Market Street from the bottom to the top. A Rastaman get paid every week.
Okay, thank you.
I want to know, you know, if solid waste is the health department. I don't know which you don't take it.
Okay,
Take it and put it in solid waste and done.
okay, jam down.
And yes, Terrence, you're doing a very good job. That's
Someone-
why working for you.
Yes,
You're
sir.
working for all our
Okay, thanks. Working for you. Good afternoon.
Jam down.
Yeah.
We're hearing you.
Yeah, to the commissioner of prison.
Yes.
You know, we had this situation with the young guys who people assume was in gang. Because of the situation, they couldn't go to areas and stuff like that. Maybe if they was offered a job, something they live in one community, they offer a job in another community.
Yes.
They can't go there because of the situation they find themselves in. Okay, some of them might have eventually end up in prison. Did you have that same situation where if you have to bring out inmate, you can't bring him out because of that stigma that would have he would have find himself in where he couldn't go anywhere because of the situation he find himself in. Did you have that same problem inside the prison with inmates that you can't take them out because if you take them out, they probably run a risk of getting hurt by people who they would have had rivals. So I'm asking you had any situation with that or you have heard of it before? You got this?
Okay, thank you so much for your call.
Yes, caller, thanks for the call. Of course, I would have heard of that. As I mentioned, I was a police officer for 32 years. I was the assistant commissioner responsible for operations. So I must have heard of that and known of that. But since I've reached in the prison, as I said, there's the calm inside the prison. So we haven't been having that inside the prison. The inmates that are there, we are seeing the truth inside the prison also. I must say that we were able to have some of the inmates, some of the gang members from outside came into the prison and spoke with inmates in the prison. And so we have had that truth also happening in the prison. I myself have spoken to inmates in the prison and they told me that they're so glad that this thing is happening. They wish that they was outside to be enjoying the peace and the truth that is happening on the outside. So no to that caller, we're not having or seeing that.
Now, Commissioner, for example, if a prisoner has a complaint about the conditions or something that is bothering them within the prison system,
yes,
do they have recourse? Is there a committee that they can go to?
Yes, by law, again, I'm coming from a police background, and so I have to make sure that I do things within the limits of the law. They have what is called visiting justices.
I was one of them.
Miss Christopher, exactly. Miss Christopher was one of the visiting justices. At present, they are not operational at present, but in the past, they were the visiting justices, and they have a responsibility to come into the prison or visit the prison at any time, morning, noon, midnight, any time. They have that authority to come inside the prison and see what is happening in the prison. If inmates are being mistreated, they can report directly to the visiting justices. The visiting justices will then report to me and let me know what they have observed and if any breach of any human rights violation, and I can deal with it quickly and make sure it stops and it's being discontinued. So the visiting justice have that responsibility. Inmates also have the option of coming directly to me. The law makes provision for that. They will indicate to what we call the chief officer that he would like to see the commissioner, and he have that right to come and see me and report his issues or what challenges he have inside the prison. So there's some mechanisms in place to deal with anything any injustices that is meted out to the inmate while he's inside
Well, it
the
was
prison.
only this week we had some concerns, which myself and Mr. Commissioner.
There's a call, Mrs. Christopher. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to the Commissioner of Prison.
Good afternoon.
The lady that there, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Something was something that was bothering me till now, because something happened in the prison to a family of mine. And don't care how I call to get, to get somebody to speak to, it's like they're brushing me off. And I'm so glad that they get you. I don't know you, but the way I hear you speak, I know you care about the inmates, them. And I'm glad that they have somebody to care about for them now, and to to lead them the right road and to speak to them. My nephew in there, Ali Percival, he got his eye damaged in there, and it's bothering me up to now, because no one had called to say, well, not to say nothing to no family out here. He sent out the message, and when he was in the hospital and say he in the hospital XY, he said, I'm going to keep you all back, I done this. And, and when I called to ask questions, well, he went out to a private doctor, and the doctor tell him the situation of his eyes. He tell him he could see out of his eyes and XYZ. I call in to come in to speak to somebody, because you cannot speak those things on the phone. Okay. And, it's like they're brushing me off. I say, okay, I leave everything in God's hand. One day they might be able to hear somebody who cares about the inmate them saying something good about them.
Have you spoken to anybody yet since? Have you spoken to anybody?
I think when it happened, Mr. Hodge was the man for the prison.
Okay.
And I asked him if I can come in to have a talk with him. He take my number, and he said yes, he will let someone call me. But then when I look, I heard that he's not at the prison anymore. But he had ample time that I could have come in and sit down and speak with him. I mean, the prisoners, them, yes, they do the wrong. They got to spend the time. They're human beings. I'm not saying that what they do and they're in there for the right, the wrong. But, if something happened to somebody, they have people out here. Say something to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Say something. They're human beings. But up to now, it's bothering me. I don't even a call for his birthday November last year, and I ain't even called back again, because, to speak about him is just that it does make me emotional to see, he lost his eye in there and nobody could say nothing.
All right. Okay.
And the doctor said his eye can be fixed.
I put this on the table for you. Okay, you can come and see me.
Yeah.
Just come by the gate and make an appointment to come and see me, and I'll have a conversation with you.
Okay, darling.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, yes.
Commissioner, what powers do prison officers have? And I know that at the prison you have to have staff training and ongoing formation,
yes,
which is extremely important to orient or reorient your staff as to what their role is in terms of the correctional facility.
I must be specific. Section 8 of the Prison Act, powers of prison officers. It said every male prison officer, while acting as such, have all the powers, authority, protection, and privilege of a constable. So a prison officer have the same powers and privilege and authority as a police constable. All right. But generally, we will often ask the prison staff to carry out the function more inside of the prison walls. If something happened outside of the prison walls in the public, I usually advise them to call the police, let the police deal with that aspect.
But really the Act says that they can deal with that too.
Also,
they have that power.
That power, yes. All right. So the prison officer have that same power, because according to the Constitution, there are 3 disciplinary forces inside the Federation: Defense Force, the police, and the prison service. So that's why the prison officer have that powers an authority like a police constable. All right. We did make mention of all the things that we rehabilitation program that we are putting in place for the inmates. Of course, I can't leave out my staff. My staff have to have continuous training, especially going forward in human rights. We have to have training in human rights, the United Nations Charter of Convention of Human Rights. This is a very critical area that members of staff have to be acquainted with. All right. The staff, since I've gotten there, the staff at the Majesty's Prison have been doing continuous training. As a matter of fact, I just had 3 members of my staff returning from Colorado, the United States Embassy in Barbados. They offer to us training in Colorado for prison officers, and so it's an annual thing, and so we are happy to have that. Last year, I had half of my staff would have traveled to Barbados to see how a larger prison institution operate. The Dodds Prison in Barbados is a newly constructed prison, and they have modern facilities there. And so half of the staff went last year, 2019, and the second half is supposed to be going starting by maybe about March. So, because as I said before, we are planning to construct a new facility, and so we cannot wait until we have a larger facility to see how they operate. Right. No longer you're going with one person going to a door and open it. All the doors will lock one time. Blam! All the doors will open one time. This is the kind of modern facility that we are looking at. Computerized system. CCTV system. This is the way to go in terms of security at a new institution. And so my staff will be having continuous training all the time. We have to understand the inmates are educating themselves. Right. So the staff have to continue educating themselves.
Right. We're out of time. We have like 2 minutes left. Is there corporal punishment in the prison? I know when I used to go to school, and at Keyon High School, they go around with the strap, and if you, depending on how many subjects you fail and so on, you have to put out your hand and all that sort of a thing. And at one time they even have the tamwin with. I don't have them thing when I look back on it if they served any purpose. But anyway, is there corporal punishment at the facility?
No, we do not carry out corporal punishment in Her Majesty's Prison. As a matter of fact, members of staff are not allowed to strike an inmate. An inmate is not allowed to strike a member of staff either, otherwise we will be taken before the court. An inmate cannot assault or strike a member of staff, and the member of staff should not strike an inmate unless he is defending himself, because an inmate might want to get aggressive towards the staff, and the staff have all right to defend himself. And so we that is not allowed. I don't even think corporal punishment is still done by the police. I know when I was a police officer in a juvenile court, when juvenile are convicted, the magistrate would have ordered some strokes with the Tamon whip, at least 12 strokes.
Or the cat o' nine.
No, we don't have the cat o' nine, but I know for a fact, because I would have shared some strokes with the Tamon whip at the officer before, but it was lawful because it was handed down by the court.
Right.
So, but I haven't heard of that in recent time. But inside the prison, no, we do not carry out any corporal punishment inside the prison at this time.
Well, Commissioner James, I want to thank you. It has been quite an honor, and of course, it's always an honor to have Mrs. Celia Christopher, who is the director of the Department of Gender Affairs.
And on an unrelated matter, I would like you to plug for International Women's Day coming up shortly on the 8th of March.
Okay.
So the people should start thinking about their nominations for awards.
Okay. Well, many thanks to both of you for coming on today's program.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank all of our callers and all of our listeners to today's Working for You program. We continue to appreciate your company from week to week. Next week we will be back with another edition of Working for You. Until then, have a good day. I am Les Roy Williams.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.